I remember looking at the codes a few years back, and there was a Dr. Grant something or something Grant. I can't remember what it was, and people were into that. And then I would see numbers or letters, probably letters, and they would be stacked in rows of letters.
Right.
And then if you had an angle this way or this way, kind of like tic-tac-toe, and then you could find these letters. And several of my main questions is, if the thing was done in Hebrew, how is it that they're spelled out in English? And that only works if you speak English. If you speak Japanese, that will never work for you. So you would get an entirely different code and stacking things. That's the part that confuses me about where they came up. Is that the kind of code you're talking about? Or are you only talking about the three things?
No. Okay, let's go into that part of it now. Let's look at that. Okay, here is the thing. Now, there was and the skip sequences is what you're talking about. They're skip sequences. Okay. And they're supposed to be interpreted from Hebrew. Okay, so it wouldn't change. Yeah, so it wouldn't change in any other language, actually, because you'd have to translate from Hebrew what that meant. So it's interpreted there first. Okay. And then it's told in whatever language it's in. You know what
because I remember seeing something, and someone who was supposed to be an expert, they were saying, this says Clinton. This is years ago. And this says Clinton, and this says Reagan. Is that possible?
But it would say it in Hebrew. Okay. And then, so it's going to be the same name. And the thing we're looking at is the Hebrew alphabet, the Hebrew language. Okay, so let's just jump on this right quick. Okay, so so the skip sequences was done this way. Okay, it starts from right to left. Okay, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In Hebrew, it's always heavens, not heaven. It's plural. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and on it goes. Okay, now in Hebrew, they would take a number that only meant something to the Jewish people. Like the number 50 is Jubilee, the number 30 is the priesthood, the number 40 is testing, number 10 is law, so on and so forth. So they would only take numbers that meant something to them, and they would scan that many over and drop that letter down. In other words, like start in the beginning, take the number 50, go 50 letters over, drop the 50th one down, 50 more, drop it down, 50 more, drop it down. So there was a professor, I think it was in the late 60s, began to catch hold of this. And so he put the Torah in his computer, and he started scanning the letters. He just set it to scan. And he's watching, and it's dropping out so many letters, however he did the sequence. Well, all at once when it got to Genesis 2, it started spelling out different kinds of trees that were in the Garden of Eden. And Genesis 2 is about the Garden of Eden. And so it got over to Genesis 4. Now I'm doing this without notes, because you threw y'all.
Yeah. Right. I threw it at you.
Yeah. So we get to Genesis 6, where it talks about the flood and destruction and all that. Well, it got there and started dropping out these words: bloodthirsty, Holocaust, Hitler. And it started naming different things. During the destruction, it was naming what Hitler did to the Jews and all that. And so then it started naming, they started seeing there was something to it. So they started using different skip sequences, and it started dropping out world monarchs in the order they ruled in.
Really?
It would spell their names. One remarkable one was when it got over to the book of Esther. They were using a skip sequence. Now remember, you can skip it this way, diagonally, but it has to be something that means something to them. In other words, because God spoke to us in the Hebrew language. So the numbers are actually letters.
And this is probably a dumb question, but it's not a dumb one for me. And that is, if it says Reagan, how does it say Reagan in Hebrew when Hebrew doesn't have the name Reagan? So how does it say Reagan?
Well, it would be
you couldn't even answer that.
It would be just like the bet, or the bat. It depends on the context of where it's falling out at.
Okay, I
see. In other words, now remember, there's so much knowledge on this, and I'm just throwing this out
sure,
right, just sitting here. I don't have one note in front of me about that. And so, okay, just like this, they got over to the book of Esther, and it dropped out of the skip sequence. It said May 10th, 1944. And they said, what in the world happened then? Well, 10 Nazis were hung for trying to destroy the Jews during the Holocaust. Well, the book of Esther is about 10 people who were hung for trying to annihilate the Jews.
Oh, man.
There's different, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, is the concept, Robin, then that God, you and I were talking off the camera a few weeks ago, and I said, how did God bake in the evergreen boat in the middle of the Red Sea, and at the birthing canal? How did he bake that in before time? And you said, and your answer was, that's why he's called God and no one else is. Is it that everything he speaks is just pure prophecy, no matter which way?
Goodness.
Is that what it is?
Well, see, God, I like what one prophet said. He said, you don't get to be called God unless you can do those things. You got to be able to do those things. And so he is the Most High God. He looks up and there's nobody there. He's as high as you go. So every word God speaks, if he says light, he speaks every meaning to that word light that can possibly be made ever. He spoke it all when he said it. That's why you can even discover all those meanings to the word light, is because he spoke it to begin with. So he fills every word to its fullest of what it is.
And it takes us all of our Earth's history to uncover it all, just to uncover it all.
Yeah.
Right?
We'll never do it in this history.
No.
We'll never do it.